Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As you can hear, as you've joined us, we love to have fun and we love to talk about relevant topics. And we started the Zentalk series as a way to connect with our advisors and our industry experts. We have a wealth of relationships that we wanted to bring these thoughts to you in the industry. So this particular Zentalk series featuring Steve Dine has focused on change. It's been all about anticipating change, preparing for change, adapting to change, and how to drive your strategic data and analytics initiatives, despite the fact that things are always changing. The only thing constant is change. So it's been a lively, wonderful set of discussions. This is part 3 in this series. And so if you weren't here for the previous 2, I encourage you to visit our website and check those 2 out. But today, and I think everybody wants to know and anticipates, AI is certainly changing the landscape of data and analytics, but how? And how relevant or how real is it today? So this is the topic at hand for today. I'm Julie Langenkamp. I'm the moderator for these Zen Talks, and I am grateful to have our guests today. Steve Dine is our expert thought leader joining us for this series. He's the head of data strategy for EXL and has a wealth of background in data management, analytics, strategy, architecture, integration, all of the things. He's been a teacher, speaker, instructor, author, and so it is our pleasure having Steve with us today. Saurabh Kara is our very own Zenoptics CEO, and he is a visionary and really passionate about bringing new ideas to the world of data and analytics and bringing them directly to people. So Saurabh, we're glad to have you here today as well. And typically we don't have a third guest, but we get to have Jonathan Wu with us today. He is another Zenoptics team member, or Zenster, as we like to call him. He has a wealth of background building programs and architectures and systems and all sorts of things in the data and analytics space, both in the trenches and then from a leadership perspective. And I want to add, because it's relevant for today, given how AI is evolving and transforming and bringing all sorts of new organizations and new ideas to surface. Steve and Jonathan are both part of an organization that supports entrepreneurs and invests in new startups. And so they have an eye on those types of companies, on those types of technologies, and an ear to the ground in terms of what that means for different organizations. So thank you all for joining us today. I think we will, usually we have these as kind of unstructured kinds of discussions, but today, given that AI is such a big topic, we thought we'd structure it a little bit more so that then we can hopefully stay on task. But as we were discussing and rehearsing for this, Steve and Saurabh and Jonathan, we talked about the hype cycle of AI. There are tremendous possibilities and tremendous potential, and we're going to keep it specific to the data and analytics world. But we're in the early stages. And so can you, Steve, kick us off by talking a little bit about what you see in the industry and with your experience about what the early stages look like?
Sure. Thanks, Julie. It's great to be here. Yes, there is a lot of talk of AI, and there's, let's be clear, there's been a lot of talk for a few years now about the possibilities and what kind of an impact AI will have in analytics and data management. And we've really started out on the data management side and trying to use AI to improve data quality and automate data quality processes, trying to make it more efficient and easier from a data pipeline development perspective, for data ops. There's a lot of areas in which it can be and is being applied, and I would say maybe even a little bit more mature in what I call the back end space. We are looking at it for there's active areas and using it for modeling and trying to sort of speed up that process, especially behind the scenes. On the analytics side, there's been a lot of excitement. There's been a lot of uptake, and really the question that everybody wants to know and everybody is really hoping for, which is, can it replace traditional BI tools and analytic tools, and can we just move and implement AI and expert systems to be able to answer our questions without even needing much on the data management side, and can we do it without needing much on the analytics side, the BI tool side, to be able to just replace what we have. And we're in a very early, what I would call cycle with regard to AI. When you look at that sort of the hype cycles that I'm sure you've seen the graphs that are out there, the early adopters and then moving out and getting more mature and so on. But we're really very early, even though there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of excitement, and there's been plenty of vendors and presentations on how AI is being leveraged today. The truth of the matter is that we still have some of the challenges that are out there when we look at implementing AI from an enterprise perspective and then replacing what we have. And I'm gonna halt there for one moment because this is a very large topic, and I want to open it up for Saurabh to jump in and Jonathan as well, because we can talk more about the specifics of what I said in a few minutes.
Thanks, Steve. No, it's a good opening. I look at AI is in practically every aspect of our life, both from an enterprise, of course, and from the social perspective. But I look at AI, how it pertains to the opportunities that it can generate from an enterprise perspective, right? From a business user perspective. And I was able to summarize this into three key opportunities that present itself in front of enterprise. Well, one of them, of course, to really bring trusted generative AI to the entire enterprise community. And I stress on the word entire enterprise community because ultimately we really want to focus on democratizing data analysis and that simplify that insight consumption at scale. Traditionally, the adoption of analytics and BI has still staggered in the high 20%, but there is a unique opportunity to really expose that and bring it to scale for an enterprise. The second opportunity and possibility I see is to really accelerate the time to value and reduce all these repetitive tasks, which not just the data analysts, but also these data consumers have. Let's look at, looking at smart consumption, smart suggestions, recommendations. And the third one, of course, is to really empower these business users. Again, my whole vision of AI in the world of consumption is to really empower these true consumers of the data, the true consumers of all the analytics and the data assets floating around. How can we really make it smart? How can we make it personalized? How can we make it contextualized? So really looking at these unique opportunities to really propagate a well-established AI roadmap and really bringing it to the enterprise. So again, like I said, my whole vision right now and focus, both from a Zentalk as well as a thought leadership perspective, is that end user consumption aspect. Those are some of my thoughts to begin with.
And
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, please go ahead, Jonathan. Thank you.
No, I was just going to mention, Zara, you're absolutely right. There's I think, a wealth of use cases that are out there. But again, when we take a look at AI and the possibilities, it's tremendous. Where we're at today and where we want to be are two different things. And so, we all have to understand that, it requires a wealth of data, the data that's being used as training sets for the algorithms that are being created. So maybe that's moving into the next step that's associated with it. But what I'm saying is, the end results from AI are only as good as the training data as well as the algorithms that are there. And so understanding specific use cases and modeling it is great. So I'll give you a good example. Using AI to help generate programming language, programming code that is very specific is wonderful. Okay, it's rules-based that's there, and it's able to generate that. And that's a great use case. When you're taking a look at, complex business questions that need answers, that takes some time. the individuals that assemble the reports, the dashboards, the visualizations have got years of education and training on the subject matter, as well as working with the data. And that's not going to happen overnight. At least I don't believe. What are your thoughts, Steve?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, there's obviously, an evolution that takes place, that takes the, early incarnations of an idea, early incarnations of a movement like AI, and then it adapts essentially to realizing what the actual user needs are, realizing what the concerns are, and they evolve, and that's kind of where we're at today. There are some things, that are exciting, like GANs, which are generative adversarial networks to generate data, and not impact our systems, not and reduce concerns, especially in healthcare and financial services, in using very sensitive customer data to build these AI models, and test them. And so those things like named identity recognition is very exciting in our space. Auto ML tools are very exciting in the AI space for analytics and for the back end side of the world. And so, but these are evolving, right? As we start learning what some of the concerns are, they will evolve even more. And one which we already do know, which we've learned from AI, is this black box problem that's out there. We already have every time we do a survey or we speak with customers about their top 3 or top 5 concerns with their analytics programs and data management programs, one that's always in the top 3 on the list is trust, right? And it's challenging enough when we provide lineage and we do all these great things for the business users that are out there, and they still have challenges with trust. And now imagine putting AI models out there, having them ask a question, get a result back, and then wonder, how exactly did that come back? Like, is this correct? What was used? What data sets were used? How much external data was used versus internal data? I mean, there's things that they just don't know, and then we've been dealing with that in AI for a long period of time, and still I don't think have fully solved it. And so, we're in evolutionary process right now. There's just an article recently, I think as in the last couple of days in the New York Times, about how LLMs are horrible at math. Well, that doesn't bode well when we talk about building trust, right? So we're evolving, but we still are at the what I would consider to be very early stages. And back to the original question that I sort of threw out there, which is, can we just replace all of our existing tool sets, and especially our front end, analytics tools, and just move that to AI? And so my answer to that is not, not yet, not in the, what I would say, when I say foreseeable future, I mean the next 3 years. We'll be evolving, and there are certain things that we will be able to get efficiencies from and automate, but we'll still be heavily reliant upon our existing tool sets, because people trust them.
Right. Well,
and the shape of reporting will definitely change, to your point. There are opportunities for efficiencies, there are opportunities to streamline the tool sets. And I love the point here, bullet point number 1, everybody wants to put AI at the forefront, but there are tangible ways to leverage AI today. And then there are places, like you said, Steve, that we're just not quite ready yet. And so creating the visibility and the trust as people move to an environment where the AI can take over some of the reporting, and yet you have that trust and that understanding about what's going on behind the scenes, or at least the ability to have faith in the answers that AI is spitting out. Sorry if you're nodding your head. I see you have some thoughts on that.
No, I just recall we were at the Gartner Data and Analytics event, and good attendance and a lot of people walking by, and everyone coming. When we would converse with these folks on the ground there, they would say, every vendor, every company has AI in their portfolio, right? And he says, but their thought was, it's great. It's good to see that the buzzword is growing. The buzz is absolutely growing, but we still are struggling to find the right use cases, the ethical use cases, right? The whole ethics aspect then comes into play. So just by introducing AI in your product roadmap or force-fitting AI into your product strategy, I don't think that's the solution. It's yet another. It's beyond the yet another shiny object. We all agree with that. There are potentials, but really harnessing and finding those right use cases. Who's the persona, right? What is the ultimate value that you expect? So really conversing with these end users to really simplify their lives, really simplifying their daily work, conversing with the product, with the data producers, and really trying to understand what are those repetitive tasks that can be avoided to make them more productive. So I just go back to on the ground conversations regularly that I have with customers, and it's a slippery slope, but I see a lot of improvement and enhancement already happening there.
Yeah. It goes back to the initial steps. Let me give you an example. You can use Gen I to simply ask a question, what is my revenue for the month of June, as an example? And then if you wanted to do a projection, you can ask, taking a look at the trailing 12 months growth rate and revenue for the month of June, project out what revenue is going to be for the next 6 months. Okay. Ask it to build a profit and loss statement. It's not going to be able to do that. And the complexities that are associated with it. It's going to need somebody to assemble and be able to put the categories together into that statement. There's not that level of intelligence at this point in time. So understanding the limitations and what you can get is I think the starting point, as well as using it to assist in your analysis that you're doing for, like I was pointing out, projections is a great way to use the tool at this point in time.
Yeah, and I might want to add something here, Jonathan. We are internally, experimenting with some of these really targeted use cases. Like in the world of enterprise analytics, what are the most common search analytics, right? Through the application, people are always searching, like bringing those Google-like search analytics into the world of enterprise. What are the most commonly searched terms? So that you can really, what is the pattern of search? Really understand from user behavior. But like you said, there needs to be a collection ground. There needs to be a placeholder to collect that information upfront and harness and use that and train it accordingly. So we've just been doing some internal pilots about just focused on user search, and then how that can inform practically the data producers to be proactive in promoting content and building out content before even user starts asking. So lots of opportunities specifically on that, on the search component of analytics.
Mm-hmm. And to just jump a little bit, add on to what Jonathan was talking about, Saurav, is the reason one of the main reasons I became interested in Zentalk was because what I realized when I look out in the future, AI is going to be a big part of the future, but when you apply it to our discipline, you think about all the challenges that we have ahead of us and what it takes to fill in those gaps. As Jonathan's talking about, you can ask, you can ask the challenge, okay, what's our revenue and project out for the next 10 years? But what it's not going to come back with is, things like, well, would you like to include intercompany revenue with that or not? And are you talking about marketing revenue? Are you talking about financial revenue? Would you like to include all divisions, just a few of the divisions? Would you like to, how would you like to do the currency conversion in today's rate, or the daily rate, the monthly rate, or the quarterly rate? Like it's not going to come back with those. The only way we can really learn those is by some of the rules we've identified within our existing systems. And that takes looking at report metadata, it takes looking at existing pipeline metadata, looks at data models, it looks at aggregations and derived fields, and it looks at the sources of our data. So there's aspects that we need within our existing environments that are going to require to bridge that gap between what AI can promise and what we end up delivering. And unless we can bring those things to all in one place, and believe me, we have a lot of very large organizations that I've personally worked with and that our company works with, that they have all this information, they just don't have it consolidated. They don't have it at their fingertips for them to go out and try and get all the metadata from all their reports and all their models within those reporting systems, and then all the all the business rules that are sitting in their data governance systems, and all the the data models, and all the everything that we think about when we think about where we keep our business rules, and and how they're intimated. It's a monumental task. We have some customers that have upwards of 10 plus different analytics tools. We have customers that have upwards of 4 or 5 different data pipeline tools. It's everywhere, and that's this sort of building on this topic of change, and sort of the technical debt that we acquire, and the sprawl we acquire when we're constantly faced with change. But unless we have tools like Zentalk that's able to bring everything into one place and be able to then access that metadata and those business rules, then we have a long road when we think about AI.
And Steve, to that point, thank you for bringing Zentalk into the consolidation, or the consolidated area of all of this information. But like you said, there's a gap presently between where people are, the promise of AI, and what is actually being delivered and what can actually be delivered. So recognizing how to get from there to what the future will bring in order to enable the business end users, and in order to enable the organizations. You mentioned having a single locate, or having organized information, having it all in a centralized place, so that then that the information is there, the data is there, but it's all ready for AI. And so how do you think organizations can get from where the example that you mentioned, to having all the information, to preparing for AI? Let's talk about what it takes to bridge that gap.
I mean, first and foremost is education. It's hard. A lot of our education comes from conferences, and a lot of vendor influence. Sorry for my compadres here, but we get a lot of that information from these areas, and don't do enough independent research and really understanding not only what can we leverage from an AI perspective, what already exists in the marketplace, but then how to apply it to our field discipline. Because it's easy to go out and look at some of these great wins of, hey, look at these great chat bots that are able to answer my questions and really create operational efficiencies, or look at these great systems that do anomaly detection in manufacturing, and are able to reduce machine downtime dramatically. Look at predictive analytics when you go to Amazon, and you're able to, in AI that's used to shorten the time of what you're looking for and come up with these recommendations. There's so many great examples of AI that are out in the marketplace. Shipping, and there's companies using AI for shipping that's really changing the game, making it much more efficient, and be able to get your, get it from them to you, or them to a customer, like a manufacturing customer, much more efficiently. And so there's great use cases that are out there, and obviously everybody, or a lot of people, have played with ChatGPT, and so it excites them. But taking what's been done out in the market and applying it to what we do, it's not, we don't have as many use cases that are out there. We have them, and that's great, but they're a bit more overhyped, I would say, than reality. You know, when you sit at the Snowflake conference and they talk about, you know, hey, look at what you can do with, I mean, those are very scripted. Those are very, what I would consider to be fairly simplistic examples of what we can do. But they're very much made to look like they are, you know, very complex. And so we just have to educate ourselves, be realistic, and, you know, think about it from a change perspective, right? Like what impact that's going to have on an organization. If we go out and hype AI and hype all this change, then people are going to become more disgruntled than they may already be with our programs. And so when it takes longer than they think to actually get to that vision. So, you know, bridging the gap is about taking what we have today and being able to leverage it for the future.
And thank you, Steve. And that goes back to something Sarab said earlier about what is the value for the end users? What is the value that the end users are expecting here? So being able to articulate that value and set those expectations along with providing the education, I think those are all huge components. But Sarab, do you have any additional thoughts about aligning that value and the delivery with as we bridge the gap and as we path or map forward?
You know, I loved how Steve simplified this whole conversation by education, right? Really understanding your users, really understanding your use case, and conversing and really bringing it to a larger audience is important. But there's also a big topic of ethical AI, right? AI can become loose, right? But to Jonathan's earlier mention, you need to have a starting point. Yes, it will evolve. Yes, there will be a lot more maturity coming in, but you need to have a starting point. Start small. Start by collecting the right data. Start by collecting the information that is actually going to be useful to train, right? So from that perspective, I think starting small is the key to a success for a wider adoption. And, you know, at Zentalk, we've been very, well, what's the right word? We've been very conscious about not just going in and throwing out words that we are AI enabled or AI ready, and your data is AI ready, because we're still trying to really understand the right use cases. The use cases are there, but really trying to, in our labs, focused on making sure that these are actually giving the tangible value to the enterprise, not just you know, to the data consumers, but also to the producers and across the enterprise line. So my my final thoughts on this, Julie, would be start small, focus on education, focus on really understanding your persona, your use cases, and then start on that journey of really enabling. Tools are there. Tools will keep evolving, but it's ultimately the people who are going to be consuming those tools and the final product are what needs to be considered.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you. But I think it goes back to, you know, you take a look, if you want to use AI in the realm of analytics itself, what Zenoptics does is help to curate and catalog the analytics within an entire enterprise. And so by having that as a foundation, it essentially allows a set of data, which you can call it training data, it's actual data, which then can be used later on for these various models that then allow individuals to then understand, you know, with Zenoptics, we've got what's called a workflow, which is a bundling of different reports, being able to then utilize, you know, a training model to understand, you know, how do people bundle reports for various analysis? And then later on, you can start asking really complex questions. So a good example is, I'm a retailer, I'm looking at expanding into, you know, a different territory. What are some of the information I should be looking at for that expansion? What are some of the considerations? And having it bring back, you know, a semblance of reports that one can analyze and take a look at. I'm not saying make the decision. I'm saying have the foundation to be able to take a look at what factors one would want to consider. That's where the power is.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider being able to apply AI to that.
Yes.
Right. And so, interestingly, I read a recent survey of what's the average time that a CDO is in their position, and it was something, if I remember correctly, it was 16 months or less.
Yes.
Um,
16 to
so my suggestion or recommendation is, if you want to lengthen that, then as Saurabh said, you have to start small. CDOs are out promising the world,
Yeah.
and then when they don't deliver, they end up moving on. And so, being able to solve some of today's challenges, like we have all these, reports and dashboards and all these analytics that are in data sets that no one can find, and have to log in all these different tools to access. You can solve some of those challenges today while you're working on your AI strategy,
Right.
and be able to implement that. And if you you can bring that together while you have other change going on in your environment. Too many CDOs are out there promising, oh, we're going to just change our architectures to data mesh, and then when you know 16 months rolls down, they realize all the challenges with that and the over
Right.
promising and delivering. They realize that the organizations just don't have the patience for it. And so, leveraging tools like Zenoptics, where you can get immediate wins, where you can solve some of today's challenges while still aligning to tomorrow's architecture and tomorrow's vision, is really what is going to lead to success in organizations.
Yeah, I believe we're in a really exciting time in terms of the opportunities that exist. And for creative or curious people, there's no shortage of applications for AI, especially with regard to data and analytics and how that can change the way that we do things, looking at things strategically as a CDO should, and still, like Saurabh and Steve said, starting small and setting those expectations so that then you can work the plan and be aware of what potential exists out there, but still deliver and make it clear what and why and what value is being delivered to the organizations and to individuals is a really huge component of this. So I know we're a little bit over time. Are there any final thoughts from our panel here before I close out?
Well, I would like to absolutely, I know I've had 3 sessions with Steve here. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience on that. And, looking at really enabling the enterprise, I think that's our whole theme, enabling the enterprise-wide adoption of data and analytics. That's the whole theme that we started off with. So it's been a tremendous experience and an honor to really have Steve be part of this Zentalk.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve, for all of your time and energy and thoughts and sharing these all with our audience. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Saurabh. It's always a pleasure to pick your brain and be able to share the experience and the expertise that you have as well. So thanks to all the attendees who joined us. This episode will be online in the coming days, but if you wanted to catch up on our other episodes that we referenced, please do visit zenoptics.com/resources. And we hope that we will see you for our next set of Zen Talks this fall. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good day.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.